So hello and welcome. It's Monday, the 21st of November. Welcome to anyone that's actually come back to work after watching the England game as well. I think it was 6-2. Actually, I just had it on the background. I'm not particularly that fussed this year. I think with the whole, all the stuff going on with Qatar and the different things, I'm not a huge fan, but it is what it is. So my name's Steve Pugh. I do something called a growth strategy podcast, which I do most kind of Mondays. If I need a break, I'll take a break. And what I try and do is introduce you to interesting people I think can help grow your business or career, or they're just really interesting people to speak to. It's the beauty of when you've got your own podcast, you get to pick who you speak to, which is brilliant. And it's the favorite kind of part of my week. So Jamie, who I'm going to introduce you to today, we've got a lot of mutual friends. We're going to talk about something called Pebble Sock Day. So I have lots of Pebble socks, which I've been giving out as well. And basically Jamie does a lot with the disabled community, talks a lot on really good issues, and actually creates some really brilliant content on different stuff. And actually, I thought it was worth kind of talking about. So if you join us for the next kind of 40 minutes or so, hopefully it'll be interesting. And yeah, if you've got any questions, comments, anything, send it into the chat as well. It should pop up on my screen. So Jamie, there we go. So you're now live and people
Hello.
can see you and hear you.
Brilliant. Hello. Thanks for having me.
No worries. How's your Monday been?
It's probably the most Mondayest of Mondays. It's cold, it's wet, it's typical Belfast weather, and I am running around chasing my tail. So yeah, the most Mondayest of Mondays.
No,
But it's been fabulous.
because I had to de-ice the car for the first time this year, and it's never good. And you just like winter's coming and it's cold and it's, oh well. So we have lots of mutual friends. It's the first time that we've spoken, as I kind of said off air. I prefer the genuine introduction and conversation rather than, if I knew all the answers, it wouldn't be in a good interview, you know. So, but I've always really respected what you do and things that you talk about. But for people that might not know who you are, would you be happy to give a quick intro to who is Jamie?
Yeah, I'll even give you a visual description for those who may be visually impaired or blind. So my name is Jamie Shields. I am a white male with short dark hair quiffed up to one side. The higher the hair, the closer to God. I have blue eyes and a short dark beard. I'm sitting in my office, which thankfully the background's blurred, so you can't see it's an absolute mess of all the Christmas decorations I've been trying to put up. I work within disability inclusion, and I tell people I'm a registered blind ADHD rhino, which you're probably thinking, what the heck? But for me, it is there's different models of disability that people kind of get caught up in, and they tell you what you should say. So you should say disabled person, you should say person with disability. Personally, for me, telling people I'm a registered blind ADHD rhino kind of eradicates all of that. And it also means then for me, like you have to ask me a question, and I like people to ask me silly questions. So that's where I came from. Also, rhinos are just unicorns with poor eyesight, and I'm registered blind. The medical term is ocular albinism with stigmas, but just means I'm the same as an albino with pigmentation, and my eyes go for little walks. So that's a little bit about me, a little bit of a rant.
No,
And I
fantastic.
work for AMS, Alexander Man Solutions. I'm also a content creator, a podcast host. With my fingers in so many different pies and so many words shooting through my head with ADHD, but that's a snapshot.
No, I must say, can I ask you about that? Because one of the lovely ladies that presents on this channel, Ashley, she has her own show. She has ADHD, and it's almost that what does life feel like, and at what point did you discover that you had it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, like I'm gonna be honest, everyone always told me I was a wee bit eccentric or a wee bit dramatic or a wee bit over the top, and I kind of just was like, yeah, and or people would tell me I was chaotic, and you know, like the TV show The Flash, the guy who like darts around. That's how my mum described me. She's like, you're like the Flash, you just can't sit still. So I didn't really realize I had ADHD or I was neurodivergent until I kind of started working in recruitment, and I was being surrounded by other people who were openly discussing their ADHD or dyslexia or autism. And for the first time in my life, I started realizing that, do you know when people tell you everyone's a little bit autistic, you're a little bit autistic or you're a little bit
Mm-hmm.
ADHD? I get told that so much. And when I began to actually meet these people, I was like, oh my God, maybe there was actually a basis to what people were telling me before. But I always really didn't like them telling me it. So the more I kind of surrounded myself with like awareness, training, individuals talking about it, even LinkedIn, I just, these things, like the penny started dropping, and I was like, oh my God, that's why I do that. OMG, because I've been listening to the same song over and over. Like, I listen to the same music over and over and repeat for months on end. My partner hates every song I hate, and I say song because it's the same song on repeat. And I thought that was just me because I was a little bit peculiar, and I do different in inverted commas, but I just thought it was just me, my personality. But those little traits all mean something. And when I'm talking to somebody, at times I would stumble my words, or I'll start talking about two different random things, but get back to the same question, or tell you my whole life story,
Yeah,
or tell you what I had for dinner. So it was very much that the signs were there, but nobody ever picked up on it. And when I said to my mum, Mummy, look, I think I have ADHD or I'm autistic, it's one of the two. And my mum turned around to me and said, oh, I just thought you were quirky because, you're disabled. Did you get? I just thought you were a bit quirky. And I was just like, nope. So I'm still pretty much in a self-discovery stage with it. I have had amazing people around me, like Leanne Maskwell from LinkedIn, Ellie Middleton. I've had conversations with them where they've really just said to me, what's stopping you from kind of exploring this? What's stopping you thinking that this is a weakness or something to kind of fear from? And the more I kind of realized that I had ADHD, the more I kind of learned ways to cope and kind of not strategize, but almost like prepare myself for the day. So like now I'm super organized. I don't always do what I need to do, drop plates left, right, and center. But it's been really eye opening.
hmm
So it has really eye opening. I'll say that.
no, that's cool. Because I must have one of the things that I've tried to do with our team, and hi to Ifeanyi that's watching as well. It's the benefits that different diverse opinions and viewpoints bring to a team,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And one of the things that I was very keen to, Ifeanyi has a show as well, it's the fact that he can talk about anything he wants that has anything to do with business, careers, community, life, anything. And I always find it fascinating because unfortunately when I do my own podcast, I have to produce all my own stuff. But when I
Mm.
do Ashley's, I sit in whilst doing the computer stuff, just listen to stuff that she talks about in the world that she lives in and enjoys and networks and does stuff. And it is different to mine. But
Yeah.
what we try and do is celebrate it and learn from it. And that's, I only know my own kind of lived experience. And it's
Mhm.
not that mine is right or wrong, but it's that balance of I love it talking to different people because I find it quite cool. And then recently, I think it was about a month ago, you started doing a lot more work with LinkedIn. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. Yeah, so I was one of the 150 creators selected for LinkedIn's first Creator Accelerator program, which is essentially a program LinkedIn had run in the US and in India. And it's where they invested something like 25 million pound or
Wow.
dollars. I'm terrible looking for currency. But they invested so much money into helping elevate people's voices, experiences within the community, people who are kind of seen as experts. And I'll be honest, I applied for it on a whim. Like, I think it was like a Friday night, and it was like nearly midnight. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to apply for this. It'll take me a few minutes. And I sat there like 4 o'clock in the morning. I was like, what am I doing? Like, what is wrong with me? And then I kind of put it to the back of my mind. And when they kind of emailed me back at the start of October to say I was on the program, like I was in shock because for me, I come online, I came onto LinkedIn thinking I was here to find candidates for jobs. I'd been a snazzy recruiter license. I was like, I'm going to find people for jobs. It's going to be great. But then I think people were sharing their lived experience, and I've always struggled with being disabled or with my eyesight, and I never articulated it. I never really got over the traumas and experiences I had went through. So when I seen other people doing this, and Ali Middleton was one of the biggest influences, was watching somebody like Ali speak about her journey of diagnosis, her experience, what was impacting her. I was like, do you know what? That looks like something that I could do. It looks like something I find really therapeutic. So initially I thought I'm gonna write a blog, started a blog, did like two of them. I was like, I don't want to do a blog. This is terrible. I want to speak to people who've been through this. I want to hear from others who have lived experience, not just of being registered blind, but just their own lived experiences in different ways because I didn't have nobody to look up to when I was younger. I had nobody to mentor me. I had nobody to ask those difficult questions. I could ask my mum, how do I do this? But my mum doesn't answer. My mum's not registered blind. So it was, for me, it started off like I was just finding my candidates, as I said, but seeing this content really just pushed me to start doing the same. So I started sharing little bits at a time, and people just started responding, like engaging and sharing their own lived experiences. And I felt really, that's such a cliche word, but I felt really privileged because for me to talk to somebody about my lived experiences 4 years ago, I would have done it. And now I stand on a platform screaming about it. So for me, any person that's sharing their lived experience, we should be celebrating, we should be uplifting. Excuse me. And then over time, LinkedIn, and like most of online, like 98% of the world's top 1 million websites aren't accessible. social media is meant to connect us. It doesn't do it at all. There's so much inaccessibility on LinkedIn. And I started getting annoyed because I wasn't just, you know, a colleague in the same department as me or another organization or somebody on LinkedIn. It was the professionals, it was the DEI
Hmm.
experts, it was the disability advocates, it was the organizations, and they were getting accessibility wrong. And I was just thinking, I find this place I can belong, but I'm not feeling the acceptance because I can't connect, I can't engage with your content. So I started posting about it. And again, I just thought I was passionately ranting about my lived experience and not telling people off, but I thought it was been a wee bit like, please fix your content or I'm going to call you out. And it kind of just exploded into this whole whirlwind of every Wednesday posting about camel case hashtags. And then like when LinkedIn accepted me, I told them my mission was to create a project to help bring accessibility to everybody at LinkedIn because LinkedIn weren't getting it right themselves. And yeah, I don't know how I ended up here, but it's been past 4 weeks. There's 2 more weeks left of the program, but the past 4 weeks has just been filled with learning. Me basically saying this doesn't work. Can we fix that? Does this work? We can't fix that. And obviously posting and trying to spread the message that accessibility is beneficial to everybody, especially on LinkedIn.
No, cool. We're going to come back to some of your posts later on. So one of the
Hmm.
things that I wanted to do, because you make these brilliant graphics that kind of, and it was part of the reason why I'm not perfect. I want to get better, but it's almost the one that blew my mind was to do with when people use multiple hashtags. But we'll
Yeah.
come back to that. But the point was, it engaged me in a way that a lot of people want to be better, but maybe don't know how. And the big thing that gets me is that I'm someone that I like to hear from people that have lived it, been there, done it, not just done a
Mm.
course and they'll tell you how someone else told them to do. That's the really big thing for me. And it's just so yeah, we'll get onto that kind of later. So did you grow up? Is that your Skype going? I don't mind.
I think it was in the background of my work laptop, so in the background. I had it. I was like, no.
Don't worry, don't worry. We've had Amazon delivery drivers. I've had lights fall from the ceiling. Trust me, everything you can imagine has happened, so it's not going to phase me. But it's no cool. So, did you grow up in Belfast?
Yeah, I'm from, well, I didn't grow up in Belfast. Like, I'm from Northern Ireland, or as we say, Northern Ireland. And I'm from like the middle of the countryside. So it was a tiny town with traditional big Irish family. So I've been one of five siblings, and not ran away, but I escaped to the big smoke, so Belfast, because I was being really mummied by my mum.
Hmm.
Like, I'm her little precious boy with bad eyesight, and she needs to rock mountain cotton wool. And it was amazing. And I still get a lot of support from my mummy, but it's just like I need to cut excuse my language, cut the umbilical cord. I need to run here. I need to be free. I need to live my life and become independent because I didn't really have any kind of independence. I was relying
Yeah,
on everybody else to advocate for me, speak for me. And running away to Belfast, I was able to be myself. I was able to kind of embrace my sexuality, that I was gay, and I was living in this really small rural town where it wasn't okay to be gay. I was bullied for it. I was bullied for being disabled. So coming to a city which was that really a lot bigger, just like, and it's not even that it's a big city because Belfast is tiny, but it was a lot bigger than where I was from, and there was gay bars and there was all kinds of people from all walks of life. And for the first time, I kind of went, "Wow, I'm not so stuck in this little bubble as I thought."
what just what did it mean almost to go to a new place where you felt people that you could relate closer to? It's just in terms of, because I come from a relatively small town, but it was within 10-15 miles of Liverpool, which was the city which had all the stuff in. But if you went out into the countryside, that's kind of where I was from. But for you, with your kind of lived experience, what did it mean and what did it feel like when you actually made that jump?
Like I'm not like, it was really scary at first because like I am terrible in new situations. I can't follow like a sign in a bus station or get buses or trains without having to ask somebody for help. So it was difficult at first because my mum was terrified. She was like, please don't be crossing the roads, just use taxis, da 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 da. And I was just like, but I need to learn how to use the pub, like walk out and about, because if I don't, like it's gonna cost me an absolute bomb in taxis. But as well as that there, I'll not develop those kind of independence, those social skills. So it was scary, but I can remember the first time I walked into a gay bar, and I obviously being from the middle of the country, there's no such thing as a gay bar. Your drag queens are something you see on TV. So it was, and I can remember walking in, there's a drag queen on stage, and as I was walking through the bar, she started slagging me, like insulted me, and I was just like, oh my God, what have I done? And obviously I didn't know where it was coming from because I can't see, and it's just like, somebody's insulting me. And she was going, what's your name? What's your name? And I was going, this person is slagging, and I knew it was me because it was slagging the jacket I was wearing. It was like this was like a grey leather jacket, but it had like I don't know how to explain it. It had like a red tinge to it. And she was calling me out. She was saying, "You in the pink jacket." And one of the bouncers came up and tapped me and said she's speaking to you. And she started taking the absolute piss out of me, like ruined me. And afterwards, she came up to me and started talking to me and goes, "Is this your first time with gay bar?" And I was like, "Yeah," just as I can really tell you're sitting there shaking, you look so nervous, and you're so white when I was a ghost when I was calling you out. And I was just like, "But, why'd you do it then?" She's like, "It's banter." She's just like, that's how you make people comfortable is make them laugh and kind of help them get comfortable. So for me, it was just mind blowing. It was this whole new experience. There was people holding hands, men holding hands, women holding hands. There was drag queens. There was cocktails. Like it was just this whole new world. And there was people in wheelchairs. There was a man there who was a wheelchair user. It was just, it was just this really diverse collection of people who were put into one room. And being from a town where it was primarily the same religion, the same kind of thinking, and that same kind of macho, oh, you have to be tough and you can't cry as a man. It was just the other side of the penny. So it was.
No, it's cool. So I'm guessing I was going to say, what were you like at school? Did you just hate it?
Oh, I hate it. Like I hated school. Like I went to normal education. I don't know about commas from primary school, so it meant I had a classroom assistant, but I was really badly bullied. And even in primary school, I was excluded. I didn't feel any kind of sense of belonging. Like
Can I
I
ask you
can
a
remember.
question? Were you born
Yeah.
blind?
So I was born with my sight condition, but I wasn't registered blind till I was maybe or 3 or 4, and
Okay.
it was the same condition that runs in my family. Women carry the gene and they pass it on to men. So I'm registered blind, but I do have some sight. And I tell people the way I can see is it's a bit like walking into fog. Do you know, like when you walk into fog, you kind of get used to it, you have to adjust. That's kind of what it's like permanently. So I have terrible like navigation. I bump into walls, like I'm constantly covered in bruises and cuts. I'm constantly told off by my partner for hitting the thermostat. I'm like, I can't see it. It's not my fault. It's just on the wall. It's an awkward place. I'm that kid from the party who knocks over the drink 700 times. Like people would say I'm clumsy, and I'm like, I'm not clumsy. I just have no depth perception at all. So like I kind of lost my train of thought there. But yeah, so like my eyesight really did just it was very individual to me because my uncle's eyesight,
Hmm.
he with our ocular albinism, so that's the main kind of condition, you kind of pick up if you will, like kind of like a lucky bag of extra things. It's like a pick and mix. You're like, yep, we'll have that. I ended up with nystagmus, which is the uncontrolled movement of my eyes, but my uncles all ended up with kind of different abbreviations on top of theirs. So we're all very different, our lived experience, which was really difficult because I really didn't have nobody to ask.
Mm.
So when I was in primary school, I kids know these things. Kids can not that it's weakness, but they see it as weakness that you're
Yeah.
just different, you're disabled, and I had some friends. Like don't take it, I had no friends. I had like one or two friends, and we used to sit and play the Pokemon Game Boy, which I don't even know how I managed to do because I can't even see a Game Boy screen now. I had like one of these like pull over the screen things, magnifiers with like lights, and kids seen that and obviously thought it was weird. And my two friends thought it was amazing. These were the bells and the whistles, but other kids were calling me weird. And like I can remember being not the only person in the class not invited to my classmate's birthday, and I
Oh.
was told it was because you have special needs. I can't hang around with you. I'm too cool. So my mum then fought tooth and nail with the education board to get me into specialist education because I was struggling. I was being put into the unit, which if anyone who doesn't know is where they kind of put the kids they see as difficult or special needs who need that one-on-one support. I was put in there, and in that class I was drawing or playing with Play-Doh or just things that you shouldn't be doing when you're P6, P7. I wasn't getting an education. So she fought tooth and nail. She got me into a specialist school, which meant traveling an hour and a half each way. So there in the morning, then at home.
Mm.
And like when you're first year, whatever, you're like 11, that's a long way for you to be
Yeah,
going
yeah,
back
yeah.
and forth every day. So I used to sleep going, sleep coming home, and had a class of 6 people, specially trained teachers, equipment, everything was there. I never had to ask for an adjustment. And for that period in my life, like with adjustments and schoolwork, I did really well. But obviously, being gay, you get bullied because you can't be gay. So it was like I couldn't win. I wasn't fitting in this category. I wasn't fitting in this category. And kids in my class and in my school, specialist school, they all bullied me and like slagged me for being gay. And because I was in the school band, don't know why I was in school band because I cannot sing to save a tune, but I was the singer. And then it was very strange because you kind of feel like you have a sense of belonging in this environment. Everyone's kind of has visual impairment. There was children who were deaf. There was children who were fully blind, visually impaired. and I felt the belonging being around people who understood that part of me. But then I felt this disconnect because I was gay, and they noticed that too. So me being the very head teenager decided that when I was doing my A levels, I didn't want to travel like 3 hours a day to school. I
Yeah.
wanted to be normal, again, inverted commas. So I went to spec what is it? What's the word for this? Yeah, like normal
Yeah.
education
Yeah.
or mainstream education. There we go, because there's nothing normal about it. So with that there, like I went in there, and again, I did my A levels, but got really badly bullied. Ended up starting to drink quite young. Ended up binge drinking, and really just became this chaotic flutter in life where I was depressed. Like the bullying had really impacted me. It ruined my social skills. I didn't want to connect with people. I didn't want to engage. I would go out drinking with my friends from actual home and get absolutely hammered and get in so much trouble with my parents. I'd lash out at my mum and dad, and you know what you do when you're hurting, you
Hmm.
lash out at the ones you love
Mm.
most, and that's what I did pretty much. And it didn't get much better when I entered employment.
Oh, I'm sorry
I
about
was
that.
really deep.
No, but the thing is, like, why I think it's important is because now, as you go, like, you know that about other people. So, for instance, if you
Mhm.
had a friend, a relative that was 16, 17 and going through something similar, because of your lived experience, you can help guide them and give them support and stuff. So, when you mentioned before about having a superpower and actually, the strengths that you now have because you had a shit time at school and,
Mm.
because there was a part of your life where you didn't have the support that you needed, that arguably could be part of the reason why you do what you do now, to make sure that other people do have the support that they need, be it on LinkedIn or other kind of stuff as well. So
No,
you got into recruitment?
I stumble, like everybody who works in recruitment says this. You stumble into recruitment. I had bounced around jobs for 10 years, and like when I said bounced around jobs, I was starting jobs, quitting jobs, not getting support, was not getting adjustments, was being discriminated against, just having to deal with what is normally the norm for people with disabilities who are disclosing or need to disclose. So I was really experiencing that. And I had just left a really big employer, which I'm not going to say the name because I don't want to get nobody in trouble or myself in trouble. But I was working for this really big employer in Northern Ireland, and I I thought I was going to get the best support there because it was such a big organization. They were all talk, and sadly they weren't walking the walk. It was just complete talk from themselves. And I left that employment and was in a really dark place, like a really dark place. My partner was like telling me, you need to pick yourself out of this. You need to get a job. You just need to get back into it. And I was kind of like, I'm sick of having jobs when I'm having to
Yeah.
leave after every so often, or having to come home and cry because I can't use a computer, or feeling less than everybody else. So I seen this post on Facebook, and at this stage I've been unemployed for 2 months. It's like I need a job. Like it's coming up to Christmas, I'm gonna be able to buy nobody presents, and I know it's really silly thinking, but that's the way my head thinks. It's like, oh no, I'm gonna let everybody else down. So I seen this post, clicked on it, and my friend was like, "Oh, it's my work." I thought it was a call center. I thought I was going into a call center, and over 3 years later, here I am still working in for AMS, which is a global recruitment RPO. We've over 11,000 colleagues globally. We work with partners to deliver their recruitment, either the full 360 cycle or certain parts. And yeah, it completely blew me away because for the first time in my life, somebody said to me at interview was, "What can we do to support you?" And that completely flipped the narrative for me. I was used to people saying, "Right, you're blind, we're going to give you this, and that's going to work for you." Yeah. And that was essentially it. And they were asking me what I needed. And I didn't know what I needed because nobody had ever really asked me as an adult. And
Hmm.
I got really emotional, couldn't really articulate, and was really emotional, like honestly, really emotional. And had to get support through the RNAB, access to work, that kind of thing. But my employer was just absolutely incredible.
Oh
They
wow.
made every effort to make sure that I was supported, that my adjustments were there, that if I couldn't use the systems, that log off, go do what you need to do, come back on if you want to, but don't worry. They were just absolutely incredible. So stumbled into recruitment, supported clients with sourcing, which for anyone who doesn't know is not exactly like a recruiter. A sourcer will kind of like almost go headhunt you. They'll find your profile on LinkedIn, they'll send you a message, they'll send you an email, they'll get your number. It's almost like say like marketing sales calls, but only there's a possibility of a job at the end. So I started off sourcing, and then over time became a global ERG lead for disability, so helping drive disability inclusion across our organization. But I think I do need to give my employer the credit because they created the atmosphere and the culture and the environment that I was able to find empowerment for the first time in my life,
Mm.
being somebody with a disability. And it was just because people listened. people ask questions. People weren't telling me, no, you're wrong, or, well, if I can see it, you can see it kind of thing. They listened with intent. And if something wasn't going right, I could have a conversation around it and work with them to fix it. And I think that's once they got me stopped talking, I couldn't stop. And I don't get me wrong, there's been bumps in the road. Like I have a yearly, well, hopefully not needed this year, but every year since I've been at MS, I have a yearly cry with our source and seat. Well, I don't know what the title is anymore because it's moved around, but you call her Noelle, and I have a cry with her every year because it happened to be every time I was getting a new client, I was getting frustrated, going, I can't do this. I want to start from the start again. I need new adjustments. I have to tell everybody. And I would just felt like you have to get a new job. But she kind of was like, well, why are you feeling this way? You work with the same organizations. All we've got to do is move these notes from over here to here. Bring your computer with you, your equipment. If it works, brilliant. If not, we'll get you something else. And like every year I had a cry about it. And now this year I'm like, don't need that cry because now I work internal, no clients at all. I actually help now do disability inclusion for our organization. So it's completely flipped the narrative for me, and being at the other end of the table saying, I just want a job. I just want somebody to value me in a place where I can belong, to actually doing that, supporting others, getting that feeling, and of course being able to say at times, this isn't working, we need to address this and we need to change this, and having people actually listen and respond is, yeah, it's a real dream come true, to be honest with you.
No, I must say it's so cool. And it was wonderful what you said. It almost like, what can we do to help? Because I know a lot of employees, and it's almost where a lot of people aren't very nice. Is the brutal honest. It's one of the truth things that I've kind of found throughout my life is that you do get a lot of nice people, but in business it's a different thing because I see it quite a lot. So to see when you find good people, it's always great to work with them and keep working with them. And just the fact that they said that, it sounds like a great place to kind of work. And then actually, yeah. So the fact that you hopefully get to do that for other people as well. Just to be that person who has been there, done it, got the t-shirt.
I actually have a t-shirt because I have a t-shirt that says disabled by society. But like it's strange because like AMS was, for me, it was me coming into a job that I thought was a call center. I could not have been further from the truth what I was doing. Like I struggled with call centers. I thought I was going to be here for a month, maybe two at a push. I get through training, or I would get onto the floor and wait for my adjustments to just leave. But it didn't happen. I ended up really loving recruitment. I really loved learning. I came into it, and for the first 2 months, I really just buried my head. And it was that hyper focus. My ADHD, I hyper focus. If I'm passionate about something, I will be there at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. May not even sleep some nights doing it. And like if I go to bed, I'll be thinking about it. And that's what happened when I started working in recruitment. I started getting really fascinated, particularly around how does a person with disability, how do we feel at interview? What can we do to rectify that? And I was making little suggestions, going, oh, can we try this? Or, can we try this word instead? And it was making a difference. And people going, well, that's really working, and we're starting to create a better experience for our candidates. And I was just going, oh my goodness, my lived experience can become my day to day. Like the things I've struggled with, that can become my day to day and my role. And then I started thinking, well, what happens if I'm thinking that way? What happens if I start asking others about their lived experience? And all of a sudden, you've got all these different voices who are sharing what they've struggled with, what they wish would change in the world of recruitment. And before you know it, you're leading a global ERG and hosting these webinars and panel discussions and speaking all externally. It just has opened so many doors. And honestly, AMS they give me my voice. Like, do you ever see The Little Mermaid where she gets the voice taken off her? Like, AMS is the opposite. They give me my voice. And since I started talking about my disability, they can't shut me up. Every call is like, what about this? What about this? What about accessibility? And they're so receptive, and it's just really encouraging, I think, to see now from where I was 4 or 5 years ago, even just a complete shift in society with employers now having to really stand up to the plate and really take accountability for not just being accessible, but being inclusive and providing adjustment support. And I think the murder of George Floyd really just shone a spotlight on DEI. And traditionally disability was always left off that agenda. Still is with some companies, don't get me wrong, but it's tragic that's how it happened, that we had the spotlight shown on DEI for us to all take action. But you can see it the past few years, the momentum has continued to build.
No, it's cool. So I've got to ask, because it is clear, I think, to anyone that watches this, as much as I do, you like to talk in a good way. But I don't know about you, but it's almost when, and correct me if I'm wrong, but almost when I was going through school and I was bullied for being poor, and I had crappy shoes that were like fake kickers and fake whatever. We couldn't afford the proper ones. But it's almost, for me, people that go through a really crappy time like that almost develop the banter as like a coping mechanism.
Oh yeah, it's your mask. Like you
Yeah,
have to have a mask. Like I would get people insulting me in work, and people, like my friends would come and start working the place. Like, why are you letting them speak to you like that? I'm like, it's better to be in on the joke than
yeah,
feeling like you are the joke. And
yeah,
being able to deflect or have that back and forth banter is it's almost like if I say this before you do, you can't say it to me to hurt me.
yeah.
And you know, I spoke to my friend Celia Hensman about this recently. She's also in the creative program, and Laura, Matthias, we were talking about this, and we were saying that we are in those situations, and it's like we put ourselves down because of internalized ableism. We have so much internal ableism, and I think that feeling of being bullied, that feeling of not being good enough, not being accepted, it's like if we can make everybody in the room laugh, and we can get rid of the things they may hurt us with, those names they may call us,
Yeah,
then they'll accept us and they'll want us to belong. But the reality is, we're not being ourselves. Do you know what I mean? We don't be ourselves. We almost put on an act, and I think that's something I really struggled with. And I think over the past few years, I've really started to see it. Is I used to be the clown. I would tell you every joke under the sun. I would go out of my way to do whatever it was to make you happy. And now I'm like, do you know what? I'm not people pleasing people because
yeah,
there's no point. Nobody comes in and tries to please me. Do you know what I mean? Like, why don't I just go out and treat everybody the way that they will treat me? And I'm not going to bow down or change who I am for anybody no more.
no, cool. Because one of the things I have noticed, because we're both involved, I'm just going to hold up some purple socks, some too
Woohoo!
stylish often. I know yours, I think, are actually on your feet. Um,
No, they're not on my feet today. I'm going to be honest with you. I bought them with an intention of wearing them for International Day of Persons with Disability. I may have wore them for a trip I went to London last week because I couldn't find clean socks. It's
you
like,
know,
they'll do.
you can wash them. It's.
I know, but I wanted them new, so I'm going to have to order more.
Do you want me to send you some? I bought 24 pairs off Andrew. Um,
Goodness,
but
stop.
would you? I've been given away. They're not all for me. That's like a year's worth of socks. Anyway, would you like to tell people about what Purple Sock Day is about, and also the International Day of Disability?
Yeah, so I can definitely speak about the International Day of Persons with Disability first. So it is a annual milestone in the year, and it's not just a one-off occasion because you should be recognizing and including everybody every year with disability, but it's a day of the year where we can really amplify the voices. We can really pay tribute to those really who are driving change or make a difference within the space. And it's also a day that companies tend to hold panel talks, they tend to celebrate their employees, and a lot of organizations will come forth and kind of do a lot of things to recognize it. But it's really important for me that this day is noted as day one of the next
Yeah,
365 years for how you drive disability inclusion. And this year, like I'm gonna be honest, I don't know too much about the purple socks, but I just know that how to buy them. Because my VA told me, Sandra, hi, she told me to get them, so I ordered them. But they are for the first time ever, I think they have a collaboration where they want as many people within the disability space, advocates, allies, all to wear these socks on December 3rd to mark International Day of Persons with Disability because we have to do something. If there's nothing, there's no global unified approach to disability. If you think about LGBTQ plus, we have gay pride, we have pride parades, we have trans parades, we have parades. There's nothing like that for disability. And I think for myself, this one act by going and purchasing these socks, which
hmm
some of the proceeds is going towards charity as well. Big win, always helping there. But for everybody to be doing this one kind of thing by putting on socks together. Like, we all need to wear socks. But by doing this here, you can be showing that you are an advocate, that you are an ally to the disabled community.
No, it's very cool. Because speaking to Andrew, who's the CEO of Parallel Lifestyles that kind of runs it, his dream is almost to do the equivalent of Red Nose Day, but to have something. But one thing I would like to ask you, if you don't mind, is
Of course.
that you see people every year in June, so Pride Month, you see company logos go rainbow flag or trans flag or whichever. And then what? Like, does it not matter in September? And like, what's your viewpoint on that kind of thing? Where it's, people do it with greenwashing, they do it with lots of different stuff. But obviously, what we don't want, exactly what you said, is on December the 3rd. Okay, fantastic. Yeah, we'll wear some socks. But they don't care on December the 4th. And I
Yeah.
just didn't know what your viewpoint was.
I think it's like, I don't mind companies changing their logos to mark occasions. I really don't. But that organization really does need to be living to those values. If I look at AMS, for example, and I'm picking up AMS because it's my employer, but I'm sure there's loads of other companies out there, but AMS, they have policies in place around trans policies. They have policies to protect colleagues in countries where it's maybe not as safe to be openly gay or lesbian or whatever you identify. And for me, when I think about those kind of acts, those policies, the panel discussions, the culture they're created, the openness, the transparency, you for me, it's companies who's really walking that walk and talking that talk who should be really changing those banners. For everybody else, if you're a company and you're not supporting your colleagues, or if you're a company that still has a toxic culture where it's okay to slag somebody for being gay, that's problematic. And you putting up that logo or changing something for the event or milestone is so tokenistic. And I
Yeah.
think it all comes back to that representation as well, is you have individuals within your organization. If you want to know if you should be celebrating these or what you should be doing, speak to those colleagues, do a D&I survey, find out how engaged or what your people want, because organizations who typically have employee resource groups, they will mark these milestone moments because they have dedicated people in that organization who are representative, either themselves identifying or advocating, and they have groups there to really drive that action. I'm a big advocate that if your organization doesn't have an ERG, you really need to shake yourself and say, what are we doing? Because that is the backbone of your disability, your neurodiversity, LGBTQ plus, whatever that group ERG is focused on, they are your bread and butter within your company to help you drive change. You as a leadership team in the company need to support and amplify those voices in the boardroom. So
And
for me, it's tokenistic, but every milestone like that, whether it be June, which is Pride Month, that's day one of the next 365 days. Disability, International Day of the Persons with Disability, day one of how you are doing disability for the next year.
yeah,
There's so many of those milestones. Each one is a starting point. Last week was Trans Awareness Week. There was your 365-day start.
yeah. Because I think one of the things that Ashley talks about on the show, it's the tokenism, but it's when they get people in to speak on a panel once and they think that's it. Or worse, they invite them to come to an event and speak, but they don't pay them to speak. So if anything, women, I think, was it if from now or from yesterday, if they get, is it 84% of the pay that a man traditionally gets for the gender pay gap? But the point being, okay, it's great to ask someone to come and speak on a stage at that conference, but if you don't pay them to cover their expenses, you're actually making them worse off than if you didn't ask them. And there's a lot of stuff that just doesn't work at the moment.
Do you know that whole pay gap, that not being paid for you speaking to, that's something that I actually did post about this recently, and I'm actually doing a talk on Friday, and the people came to me and said, what are we paying you? I was like, I don't want paid for me because you're doing something I actually genuinely believe in. And it's, I think when you're a speaker, somebody who's seen as an expert, I do that in very commas because I'm no expert. I'm only an expert from my own lived experience, but people will come to me and say, come speak with us here, or what were some resources I can go to get this? And I always give people the resource, but it's when they start to say, and what would you do? Or can you advise in this? Or can we jump in a call? I'm like, that's when you're starting to kind of buy into my time, which is I'm not
Yeah,
your consultant. Unless
yeah.
you're paying me a consultancy fee, I'll happily come and consult you in your organization. But if it is you want me to come and do a talk and it's a panel to do with a charity or something like that, I will do that for free, happily. But it's when you have organizations who are making and raking in the dollar, who are
They're taking
not
the piss.
investing in the D&I and think we're going to get free speakers and bring them in, and next year we'll get another speaker, and that's a tick, 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 tick. Diversity and inclusion isn't a tick box, and it should never be seen that way. That's why you need to have people in those roles. You need to pay your speakers. And do you know what? If you get a speaker who says, no, I don't want that payment, absolutely fabulous, because I'm pretty sure the lady I said it to this week was like, what do you mean you don't want paid?
But
Like, no, you're a charity. I want to do this here with you.
because I think the thing that I always call it's my working class bullshit meter. It's when you
I
can
love
tell
that.
people are doing it for the wrong reasons, or you can see through their veiled attempt to kind of, and I call them out on it. It's just one of my pet peeves. But then likewise, because I have a platform, I can use it for cool stuff like this. So one of the things that you're really good at, but I might struggle to read it, is that you do brilliant posts, which often have a visual and there's a graphic and there's different things that you talk about, which I think would be interesting to discuss. So what I'm going to try and do, I'll read the caption that went with it,
Okay.
and then we can talk about it. Is that cool?
Yeah.
So the first one was, equality is everyone receiving a pair of shoes, and equity is everyone getting a pair of shoes that fits.
That was my first graphic. It blew up. Like I posted that on a Sunday, and you're thinking LinkedIn, it's a Sunday, nobody's going to engage. And I sat down at the back door for a smoke, came back in, and my phone had like 300 notifications. I was like, somebody's died, something's happened, what's going on? And turned it on, it was LinkedIn. So that graphic, like I read this book once, and it kind of talked about the diversity and quality, and it was kind of given different abbreviations for it. And the generic one, oh, it's everybody dancing, or everybody comes to a dance. That one was there, or being invited to dance to dance. And then there was a line in it which basically talked about equality and equity, and I kind of put it to my LinkedIn audience, and we had a conversation around it. And from their feedback, from something I added, I put it together, and I was like, do you know what? I'm a visual learner. If I wasn't a graphic, I'd learn that quicker, and that's where it came from. And it was the starting point of every graphic that came between, because for a couple of days I kept saying to my friends, like, should I make more graphics? Like, is this the thing people would like? And like, it's now led to me actually creating accessible graphics for people. Like, people pay me to come do graphics, and I'm like, okay, let's go on to Canva. You could have done this yourself, but okay, I'll do it.
So what did you mean, if I can ask, just about the difference between equality and equity?
So equality, the way that people always ask what's the difference between equality and equity, and it's one of those things that for me you can't have equality without equity. Equality means that we all get a pair of shoes, all lovely, whatever they are, it doesn't matter what they look like, doesn't matter. You have a pair of shoes. Equity is making sure that those shoes fit. We all have different size feet. Where if you give me a size 8, I'm never getting into them. I need size 11, please. Thank you. The Converse is even better. But it was to try to help bring that difference to life, because people were just asking, and you see it all the time, and what's the difference? And for me, it was just a really great way to explain that. But then I started adding in everything else. There was ones around, so diversity, equality is everybody getting a pair of shoes. I can't even remember it off the top of my head now because it was like 6 months ago. But there was little abbreviations with all to do with DEI, and people call them the buzzwords of DEI, so diversity, equity, inclusion. And for me, I just wanted to make it as straightforward to the point that if you were a child in a classroom, you'd understand it.
Yeah.
Equally, if you're a student, but equally if you're an adult in business. And that's where that one came from. I didn't think anything of it, but it just led me down such a garden path.
So the second one, it's a little bit longer, so I'll try and read it out. Hiring people with disabilities is not about doing the right thing. It's about hiring a diverse group of individuals who add value through bringing new ideas, introducing new ways of thinking, are more likely to retain employment, boost staff morale, are experienced problem solvers. Hiring people with disabilities is not the right thing to do. It's the logical thing to do. So why do we teach young people with disabilities how to fit into society, but yet we don't teach non-disabled young people how to be inclusive, accessible, or better allies?
Mhm. So you hear all the time, like I hear people say all the time, like, why should you hire disabled people? It's, oh, because it's the right thing to do. Not everybody's moral compass points north. Not everybody shares the same values. We are shaped by our society, our surroundings, our feelings, our traumas. So much things go into shaping us. So what's right for me is always not going to be right for you. And it just annoyed me that people kept saying it's the right thing. And I was like, but it's not the right thing, because why is it not being seen as a logical thing? Because this is a group of individuals who, disabled people, we're natural problem solvers. If I'm going somewhere, I have to plan that route A to B, make sure that I'm going to get there. I am going to be able to get there accessibly. If you're a wheelchair user and you're having to get trains, you have to make sure that lifts are working, you can get off the train stations. There's so much that goes into planning that we're natural problem solvers. As well as that, we deal with so much, and excuse my language, so much bullshit, which is ableism, what is rooted in society, which is people telling us we're less, or we should be pitied, or we're this or that. So we already have willpower, a really strong willpower. And as well as that, we have to learn to articulate. We're constantly having to ask for help. So we're having to say, can you hold that door for me? Can you get me a larger size? This isn't accessible. Can you rectify this for me? We're constantly having to ask or, require support. So we're excellent communicators. So for me, you also another one's when there's neurodivergent. If you're neurodivergent, that's a whole new way of thinking. Like, I can have a conversation with you right now, and my mind can be doing 7 other different conversations back in my head. And you probably notice it throughout this call. I'll start telling you something and then come in with something else and then come back to that. And that's just the way the brain works. And I'm like, that's a whole different way of thinking. And whoever tells you that people who are neurodivergent don't see things differently. Of course we do. We've seen 7 different routes to that end of that question. Not that we're all the same, but everyone's individual. But for me, that's the way I feel. So it's not the right thing because our competence is different, but also it's the logical thing because we have additional skills. And as well as that, why wouldn't you want somebody who's going to come into your workplace and be that representation? Because representation matters. You want to know how to get more people with disabilities into your organization. Well, start promoting, developing, and retaining the ones you have.
Yeah, I must say, because one of the big things I see and definitely feel is that if you're the business owner and you're the person or the group that own AMS or whoever, like, there's only so much money you need. Then for me, it's about societal benefit and helping people and just being a good person. And like, it is good to do the right thing, but actually when it also makes completely 100% business sense to have
Yeah.
different opinions, you're fundamentally better than people that don't do that. So it was something I wanted to ask. And then this is the one which I mentioned before, which this blew my mind, and just because I'm guilty of this, so I stopped. When people post too many emojis, what problems does this cause?
So is that, yeah, do you want me to answer that? Yeah.
Yes, please. Sorry, my bad.
Uh, So if you are somebody using emojis, screen reader users will struggle with your emojis. And it doesn't mean you don't have to use them, but emojis essentially have what's called Unicode string. And it's a bit like alt text. So alt text describes a picture. Unicode is pretty much alt text describing an emoji. So the thumbs up emoji is surprisingly thumbs up. So when you're creating a post and you replace the word, you don't always know that Moji's Unicode is going to be what you think it is. So thumbs up was easy, but sometimes they're different. So screen reader, let's say for example, if you put down, do you know the three droplets of water, the three little
Yes,
droplets?
yes, I do. The rude
So that
one.
actually turns into sweat, three sweat droplets. So if you're telling somebody I'm going for a shower, you might say I'm going for a shower, but you've done those droplets. You're basically telling somebody using a screen reader, I've run for three sweat droplet, and they're going, what do you mean? Like, what are you doing? Or I've had a drink of three sweat droplet. You're like, why are you drinking sweat? So it's the Unicode string isn't the same, and it's also about the user experience. So when you're using loads of emojis together, and we see it all the time on LinkedIn, it's like emoji overkill in some post. You're like, what are you doing? I'm switching off my screen reader because imagine having to hear clapping hands, 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 and that is just one line in that post. Can you imagine having to go through a whole post filled with those emojis? It's not a great user experience. So you're already discounting people who use screen readers. Screen readers are assistive technology. It's used by people who are blind, visually impaired, people with cognitive disabilities, people who are neurodivergent. A whole range of individuals use them. So it's not that you shouldn't use emojis, but it's like use them sparingly. Use them at the start of a sentence or
Yeah.
the end of a sentence. Don't replace words, and do not, please, for the love of God, please don't use loads together because it really is horrible. If I could play it right now, I would let you hear it because it's shocking.
Because I'm one of the people that, because of you, you've changed my life. So, like for instance, if I put something that was a brilliant piece of music, I used to go fire, fire, fire. You know, I'd do 3 fire
Yeah,
emojis.
I used to do it too, and like this is the thing. I used to have the selfish view, and this is being real honest. I used to have the selfish view is, well, people don't make anything accessible for me, so why am I worrying about others? And that's when I was younger, and I used to go on Facebook or at the time Bebo, and it would be like I 700 love hearts, and then like a name of a song. And now I look back at it, I'm like, well, I couldn't even engage with my own post. I didn't care about anybody else, and it's like, do you know what? That's the problem is we're so sometimes caught up in what's going on around us and we don't know, we aren't aware. Like when you're creating inaccessible content, it's because you don't have the lived experience. I was a selfish young person and I didn't care about anybody else what was going on because I was in my own little bubble. Everything was terrible. Nobody was doing it for me. Why would I do it now? And now I feel like I almost have to make up for
Mhm.
that fact because I'm like, I was inaccessible. Do I always get my content right? Oh my goodness, no. There's times I'll make my hashtags and the all uppercase, camel case, and I'll hit a button being blind, and next of all, all lowercase, and I'm like, oh, I posted that, and you go back and change it. And then when you change the post on LinkedIn, it racks the algorithm, but
Yeah.
has to be done.
So I must admit, I am conscious of your time as well, so I don't want to keep you talking for too long. What's your dream for the future? What's the big ambition?
Oh, that's a big question. So I love my job at AMS. I really, really love my job at AMS. So I hope my future will always have a part of AMS in it. So like I hope I'll either be in this role or I do also want to kind of take my podcast and run with it. So I have my new podcast, The Inclusivity, which actually launched today. It's about supporting organizations with disability inclusion. How do we create accessible cultures, inclusive cultures, and how do we actually talk about disability in the workplace? So episode one, disability is a business imperative, is out today. So I want to kind of go with that, but I've also kind of went down the avenue of creating accessible graphics for people.
Hmm.
I've been advised on accessibility and around marketing, and it's pretty much just off the side of my desk. It's like self-employed at the side of my job, but I'd love to be able to stay in that position where I love AMS. Like I think if AMS ever sacked me or if I ever left, it would be like I got divorced from them or something. I'd go into the horrors. But like I want to be able to kind of enjoy my role with AMS, but at the same time enjoy my little kind of side gigs, which I have
Yeah,
been able to
yeah,
do. So my goal is that I do that, but also my goal is that LinkedIn becomes the most accessible platform out there. Twitter did a really good job at it, but unfortunately, he should not be named has I'm not, can't get into that, but you know what I mean? Yeah, I can't even say it because I was so angry because it was,
Yeah.
the platform was doing the most amazing work within accessibility, sacked the whole accessibility team.
Wow.
There's nothing on that platform now to stop it from falling into absolute chaos within accessibility. So for me, I'm like, let's get LinkedIn on that. Let's make LinkedIn the most accessible. They're receptive and they listen, and the fact they're amplifying voices with this people with disability, I think, is phenomenal. So
No, that's cool.
hopefully that's my ambitions,
No,
and I
that's
also
cool.
hope society stops disabling us.
No, that's cool. So I have two questions which I
Mhm.
ask at the end of every interview, and then
Mhm.
we'll ask you to say where people can find you, and we'll plug everything, which is quite cool. So if would you be happy to share the best piece of advice you've ever had?
Yeah. Oh, the best piece of advice I think I ever had is, and I'm going to be really corny. It's going to say what comes from my mummy. Like my mummy is my best friend and my biggest advocate, and it was. I don't know if I'm going to say it really. Actually, it's a bad word now, but it
It's
basically
fine.
is something along the lines of "f everybody else," because at the end of the day, nobody's going to bend over backwards to support you. You have to go in and advocate for yourself. And yes, there may be people who'll try to uplift you along the way, but those people won't always be a permanent fixture in your life. So you have to be able to grow that backbone and speak for yourself. And it was a very deep conversation my mum had with me because she needed to have it. I was blindly wandering through life, and it basically was F everybody, you have to dance to your own beat of your drum.
No, that's very cool. And the next question is that if you were to give advice to your younger self, and you could pick you at school, you at 16, you and maybe you were drinking a bit more than you should, or when you're about to move to Belfast, or whichever. If you were to
Mm.
give advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Don't I know I don't know if I said don't cry because I think I needed to cry. It would probably be just to just keep going because like it was a really dark a dark time for me, and I went through depression, I went through self harm, all that kind of being kind of traumatic experiences. But I would say keep going because at times it can feel like you're ready to give up, and shouting for accessibility, shouting for your rights can feel that nobody's listening, but sometimes you get one company or one person that listens, and that one time that person listens can just open every other door. Like look
Yeah.
where I am now. Like AMS 3 years ago, I've had so many doors. I've got even saying that. Like I have so many doors opened, and like if I 20-year-old Jamie, 16-year-old Jamie, 8-year-old Jamie, just keep going.
No, it's awesome. And completely agree. I think especially in the next year, 2 years, if there is a recession, a lot of people are going to struggle. And one of the things that you do see, and it annoys me a lot, but when you see people on LinkedIn or socials, and they all pretend to be perfect, and they've doing private jets and everything, and it's like that's not true. And the point is, I know a lot of people that worry that everyone else is doing amazingly, and they're doing shit, and it's not the case. Does that make sense? And it's just so
Yeah,
having people talk about genuinely what they're doing and not giving up and stuff, I think is really important.
like I said, like money. So they always say that money doesn't bring happiness. Like we know it'll bring us comfort. Like we'll have a lovely time with it. But like for me, I don't see the value in what I do is in I'm successful if I make money because like I get like a normal wage. I don't make loads for my self-employment. Like it's maybe a couple of £100 a month, and even then we all the tax and all like to get that at the end of the year. And I've only started doing it, so it's like for me, it's like the value in life is from your interactions with people. And yes, I know my advice I gave a few moments ago was like F people, but it's F the people who hurt you or put you down because there's people in life. That's what the value is people. I believe in the power of people and those interactions and being able to kind of be the change yourself, like take accountability for your accessibility online, like things like that. Like I'm a sucker for people and trying to encourage others. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's silly. I give you my last £2. So, what to get a train home is believe in people, and what karma will come around and support you. What goes around comes around, or springs back around. Isn't that what they say?
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. So where can people find you, follow you, hire you, etc.?
Yeah, so you can't hire me because I will refuse to do it. If you want to hire me as a consultant, you can. So I can be found on Twitter as Jamie Shields or Registered Blind ADHD Rhino. Same on national Twitter is Shields Jamie VI is for visually impaired. And on you'll see it all on my profile. I can't even speak.
Don't worry.
Find me on LinkedIn. That's my main one. LinkedIn's my main one.
No, it's cool. And then what's the podcast called, and where can people find it?
Yeah, so the podcast is called The Inclusivity. Now it's not spelled like inclusivity the way you think it is. It's INCLUSIVI-T. And I had to like close my eyes to say it in my head. It's like the inclusivity.
No, honestly, and as someone that does podcasts and stuff, I appreciate how hard it is and the hustle. But the funny thing is, what it does, it gives you a platform to help empower other people. And that's the beauty of it. You won't make money off from it. Some people do, but not many do. But what you can do is raise awareness on really important stuff and give them a voice and educate yourself. And people do notice, because one of the things that I've noticed is that 99.5% of people don't interact with it. They don't like it, they don't comment, nothing, but they still see it. And that's the important thing, is that you can still get the message out there and do stuff like Purple Sock Day and, you know, put out a really good message. And it doesn't even mean that people don't appreciate it, but it's just it. But that can be hard as a creator to keep creating when you think there's no engagement. But the truth is, there is. And it's good luck on your journey as well. I will certainly link it in the post. No, thank you for today. It's been a pleasure as always. I know we tried to do this a month or so ago. But you know, life gets in the way and stuff like that. But honestly, it's been a real pleasure.
My ADHD and terrible organising.
But no, honestly, it's been a pleasure, and I love the voice notes that we send each other and stuff. And it's please keep the good fight and stuff, and stay in touch. And I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry for rambling.
Honestly, there was once a lady who we ended up speaking for 1 hour 37 minutes, which is just bonkers. She just wouldn't shut up. So trust me, you've been fine. You also have the opposite, where you've got a guest that doesn't say anything, and it's the worst.
And it's just waiting for the pen to drop. It's like, what do I talk about now?
Yeah. Anyway, but no, honestly, thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure. Keep up the good work and stuff, and stay in touch.
Just thank you so much. Happy Monday.
You too. Bye. Bye.